Hi everyone, welcome to LoveCast, the BL podcast reviews. I am your host Alexa, and I have my fellow hosts Pixie and Kayla with me.
Hey.
Hey.
So for this month's review, we are taking a look at Beyond Cloud's big series of 2025, the Thai BL Shine. So the series synopsis: a tale of love and ideals unfolds in an era resistant to diversity, set against the backdrop of political turmoil in 1969 to 1971. Trin, a principled economist, collides with Tanwa, a free-spirited hippie. When they encounter Moira, an extravagant widow who lives far beyond the boundaries of freedom, their lives take an unpredictable turn. The series is 8 episodes. Each episode ranges from about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, and it can be watched on WeTV. One thing I always think is interesting with these synopsises that shows put out is that I feel like they don't really encapsulate the show, because I don't think that Moira was really she was a character in the story, but I don't really think she influenced.
She wasn't really
Tanwa
part
and
of
Trin's
the
relationship.
Yeah.
She was I think she was important in other ways, especially later in the story, but I don't really understand. Yeah, she was kind of a mother figure to Tanwa in some ways, but she didn't really impact their relationship at all. So that was interesting.
She was pretty much a plot device throughout the show. I think it's weird that they don't mention Victor or the journalist or the students or anything like that.
Yeah, and this is the most synopsis I could find across WeTV, My Drama List, all of the platforms that it's on. So it's interesting. I don't know if these synopses are put out before the show has really taken form, but I feel like that kind of downplays a little everything that the show was about.
Yeah. Can I mention it is also classified as a rom-com?
What?
Oh.
Yeah, it says genres comedy romance.
Bro, what?
Sure. There were some silly moments, but I wouldn't say it was a comedic show overall.
Wow.
Such an interesting. Yeah, I would definitely put political, political's in the tags, but I would say the genre is political. Personally, and this is one of the first things I wanted to say about this show, because I know there has been a lot of fandom chatter about this. I think romance is secondary to everything else that happened in this show. I don't think the romance was an important part of the story, but I don't think it was a romance first and foremost. And so for that reason, I know one of the big issues certain viewers of the show took away is that they did not feel that Trin and Tanwa had as much depth to the romantic aspects of their relationship that they would have liked. But I don't really think the romance was the point the whole time.
I understand what you're saying. I understand. And I completely agree. But I think the show was trying to do something about balancing the political and the romantic. And I think they sort of missed the mark on both, because they should have pulled a little more back on the romance if it's not supposed to be about that. Or they should have, they did too much of both, trying to put both in there, that it felt off to me. I don't know. There was something. I feel like it was trying to do too much.
Really?
Yeah, I have some views, dude.
Oh, wow.
I people are not gonna like what I have to say.
Wow.
See, I kind of sit in the seat that I didn't think the show was that romantic, but I didn't think it was supposed to be that romantic. Obviously there was the police Kryler. I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation of his name every time. Kryler and Naran, who had this romance that burned very hot and very fast. But even throughout that, there was a lot to the undertones that made their relationship less romantic than it was on the surface, if that makes sense. Like, they're having sex and they're having these very romantic encounters, but because there was always this cloud of this political cloud sitting in the room with them and how they differed, and especially with Krylert's work as the army and the things that he was complicit in, like, was always a cloud over their relationship. So a lot of the things that were meant to be romantic with that couple, I think, were less romantic once you look at them in depth compared to on the surface. And then with Tanwa and Trin's relationship, I know there was a big sector of the fandom that was mad that it was promoted to some extent as a Mile Oppo series, and Mile and Oppo did not have a lot of explicitly romantic moments in the show. And the relationship was very will they, won't they, are they, aren't they for a lot of the show. But that didn't, I don't know, I wasn't very bothered by that.
I don't mind that. Like, I've said many times that I don't think shows should center around ship partners anymore because it's ruining the plots of most of the series out there. But my real problem with Trin and Tanwa was that I felt like their relationship didn't really make that much sense. I felt it was all very superficial, and they were trying to go into depth. They were trying to make it deeper. They were trying to make a connection, but it wasn't landing with me. The little we got where they were actually trying to get to know each other and share and heal or whatever, like, it was so little, and I didn't understand why Trin liked Tanwa at all throughout the show. And they were trying to do something with the threesome, like with Victor, like trying to show up like some sort of competition there with the whole shot where they're in the bed and you have like all three of them, and Trin is moving towards Victor and then he turns towards Tanwa, and it doesn't make sense why they were trying to do that, because at no point in the story does Trin actually show any interest in Victor. None. So why are you trying to push this competition with Victor there that way? Like, they were trying too hard. They were trying too hard.
I think, at least with the Victor element, I think it was more like Victor thought he was in the competition when the reality was that he was not really, like, he was going so far out of his way to like make Trin see him. And obviously Trin cared for him, like, you know, and that's part of what fueled Victor's feelings for him. But I think Victor saw himself more in the competition than he ever actually was. I did read that scene. Like, I understand what you're saying about the scene with like the three shots and how like Trin was tossing and turning in the middle. But I don't know if like the rest of the show like made it really seem like there was a competition, because I feel like they made it pretty clear when we saw things from Trin's perspective that he didn't view Victor that way.
He had, that's what I'm saying. He had no interest in Victor that way. But I felt like with some of the shots and the way they framed things and the way they showed things, they were trying to push it without actually putting it. I would have liked better if they actually put some plot points in there that made it. Like, will they, won't they, three people, who is going to end up with who. That would have been better, but I felt like they sort of chickened out because it's supposed to be Milo and Oppo. So I liked Victor as a character. I really liked him as a character, and I'm just like the part about his ending in the world was kind of, I don't know. I felt okay. Honestly, I can't put it into exact words, but what I was left with after finishing the show was that I thought the whole show was kind of pretentious.
I'm just sitting here silently because I feel like I watched the show through a completely different lens. Like, I don't agree with anything you guys said. Literally. I'm like, Oh my gosh, where do I even begin? Um, well, I guess like I didn't know that people were, I guess that there was discourse about the romantic elements versus the political elements. But like I don't even think I even like thought of any like it as a romance series. And I never
That's what I'm
watched it and
saying.
was like, oh, there's like too much of this or too little of this. I don't agree that Tanwa and Trin didn't have a lot of emotional, lovey dovey moments together. I think that a lot of their moments together were very subtle, and they had a lot of moments apart where they were thinking about each other that, again, it felt a little more subtle. So even when they weren't necessarily interacting with each other, when they were just thinking about each other, like whenever Trin would look at the origami that Tanwa made him, or he would stay up all night and like reorganize his room thinking about Tanwa, it was like they didn't have to always be, I guess, like physically intimate for me to feel that I don't know, it's for me to feel the romance between them. And yeah, I do think that they had a lot of scenes where they did interact romantically. Like I don't see the criticism of them not having enough romantic scenes at all, personally. Victor. Okay. So, Victor, I felt like the point of his crush on Trin was to show that he is very childish and that he is very impulsive because he is still young. And even though we as the viewer view him as pretty mature, like he is running this protest group, he's very smart generally, but at the end of the day, he is still very much a child. So like he's going to make impulsive decisions and he's going to feel things very strongly. So for me, I felt like it made total sense that he kind of fell into this crush with Trin, because it's just like they have this kind of like, for him, it feels like a push and pull where he's like, okay, we're at two kind of opposing political stances here, but I feel like I can change this person's mind. And I don't know, I just felt like it made a lot of sense considering Victor and Trin's dynamic and the way that Victor, I guess, comes into Trin's life, or Trin comes into Victor's life. But I don't know if you guys have seen, but Oppo did talk about Trin and Victor's relationship in this Twitter space that he did. Because there were a lot of people, I guess, who were like shipping Trin and Victor together and wanted them to be together, and he like did this Twitter space completely shutting it down and was like, no, that is absolutely not the point of the series, if that adds in any context. But yeah, it was very much a situation where Victor thought that he had a chance and he was doing things to try to make himself appear older and seem more mature, like doing his hair, working out, trying to seem like he's an eligible bachelor for Trin, but obviously like Trin doesn't view him that way. And it just like generally it made sense to me why he would have a crush on his like professor that he's kind of like battling with in a way, he's arguing with. And then yeah, I think it just all comes down to him just like showing that he, even though he is very mature in some ways, he's still very immature in other ways.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I was saying I understood like how Victor saw himself as a competitor when he wasn't actually. And like I understand where his feelings come from completely. And I didn't see or like hear Oppo's Twitter space, but it reminds me of, and this is a show that I don't think anyone here will have watched at this point. But there's this show that just came out on Netflix called Boots, and it's the story of this gay kid who enlists in the military in the 1990s when it's illegal to be gay in the Marines. And there is this drill instructor that goes like really hard on him, like seems like to really have it out for this kid. And then it's revealed later in the story, spoiler alert for anyone who might be planning to watch, that this drill instructor is also gay and is basically in line to be prosecuted by the Marines for it. And so like he's going really hard on this kid because he wants to set him up better to be in the Marines than he was. But it is like a similar thing where like a lot of people are shipping them and like this dynamic that they have. Whereas I think it's a little bit different from Trin and Victor, but it is kind of like a similar framework where it's almost like, I think it's meant to be viewed more as like a mentor-mentee, like older sibling, younger sibling type of dynamic. But it's like when two men have chemistry on screen, like people are going to ship it, even if that was never the intention. So I think that's like kind of a similar situation that might be happening with Victor and Trin. And I didn't, like, I understood why, like, I understand like why he would not want that to be like the takeaway, like to ship those two characters.
Yeah.
Because I think there was very purposeful, like, Trin's actions toward Victor were very purposeful, and like he was, I think, always very clear with Victor in his intention of their relationship. But Victor's mind was kind of like, oh, this is a chance. Like Victor was seeing it as a chance in some ways. Like he wanted to be the one to step in.
Like Kayla said. Yeah, I completely agree with both of you. I just think like I'm not saying like the plot, like the filming of it, like how they set the shots up, and with everything they were pushing a different narrative than it was supposed to be. Like I don't know, I can't really explain it. It just the feelings I had afterwards were, it didn't hit home like I know it was supposed to hit. Which is why I'm saying that I sat with the feeling that it was all very pretentious, because it felt to me like they were trying to do something bigger than what it was.
I feel like I was very emotionally impacted by the political elements, less so the romance. And maybe that's just because a lot of this is mirroring a lot of stuff that is happening in America again right now in terms of government and democracy and protesting, which is why every time, this has happened in 2 shows recently where like, and obviously for the 1960s, like America was this pinnacle of freedom and democracy, and like you can go there and be whatever you want. But now when I'm watching these shows, I'm like it's really hard to watch stuff like that in the current America and like not be like super emotionally impacted by it. So I think I connected with story a lot on that front, a lot. And I was very connected to like Victor as the student protester and what the students were fighting for, and even like Trin as this character who wants to view everything equally, and like that's kind of where he comes into the story as like this person who wants to be the center, even though like his upbringing makes you think that he would be on the side of the elitists, and that's what people assume. But he kind of comes in as like this very rational character who is trying to see everyone's side and play everyone's side. And just like his trajectory of going through that, and especially what happens with Victor and his death and how that impacts him. Like, I don't know. I think that part of the story all really resonated with me. And I was very locked into what they were trying to say with the protesting and the elements of democracy, and talking about censorship in the media, and with Naran's character and his boss at the newspaper who keeps censoring him from running these stories and stuff like that. I don't know. I think I really connected with those parts, and I think a lot of it is because it's mirroring a lot of what we're seeing in America right now. So it's very like, it was a very timely watch for me, I felt like.
That's what drew me into the series as well, are the political elements, and just like every single thing that would happen, I would be able to connect it directly to something that just happened here. And it made me, I guess, it made me really emotionally connected to the characters, because I'm like, okay, I see them going through this, and we're going through this, and it was even worse back then, in terms of censorship and stuff, you know, like the series is very true to real life, especially during that time with the military being the government, and just like all the corruption that caused. But yeah, there were so many elements, which actually it ties into like one of my favorite things about this series, which is in episode 1 how they established the parallel between the 1969 Apollo moon landing and what was currently going on. So like you see like these technological advances happening, but you also see that for these technological advances to happen, for change to be made, there's always going to be some level of human suffering and human sacrifice. And like they also did a really cool thing with the Apollo moon landing and like that famous Neil Armstrong quote, the small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. They did a really cool thing with paralleling that with Trin's journey throughout the series, stepping out of his comfort zone and making like his own leaps and bounds into, I guess, becoming more socially conscious, politically conscious, and understanding where others are coming from, understanding where his girlfriend who died at protesting was coming from. So yeah, I really like the parallel they were setting up with, you know, all these cool things are happening. It's a new era, but also it's almost like we're still very backward thinking with a lot of things that are going on. I liked it. I was cool. There was so much symbolism. I could talk about like all the symbolism all day, but yeah.
Yeah. I think like the one big comparison like that I'm thinking of right now, and not to get too woke on the podcast, but is AI and like specifically like the AI data centers and how like this is becoming a big thing that like it's exactly like with the plants that they were building. Like yes, these plants have the potential for like these huge steps forward for technology, and on the surface like it'll like really help like the public of like the general public and stuff like that, but the communities are the ones who suffer for that. So like with the AI data centers, like the places these data centers are being built, like the air is getting polluted, the water is being ruined, like the people who live in these communities, and in America, most of the time they're poor Black communities, like are being killed essentially for it, which is exactly what we saw happen here with like the community that they were wanting to build these plants in, and trying to think of like the ramifications that it would have for the people. And it's like the second someone started questioning things, like the village chief, like after he talked to Trin and the students and really wanted to start having more of an input on what was happening, like he was killed. And so like I don't know, I think there's just so much like the political stuff is just like it's a lot to think about, but it's also like you said, like it's so everything can be tied to something that we see happening currently. And so like I think that makes it like super relevant for modern day discussion, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The AI centers, that's the exact thing that I thought of too with the power plant. I also, obviously we all know that they're trying to cancel comedians. They're trying to cancel the late night shows and censor that as well. I thought of that, just like the censorship of television. Back then it would have been, I guess, the newspaper. But yeah, there were so many things that I was like, whoa, this really hits close to home. And it already like made me emotionally connected, like I said, to the characters in some way. Most of them. Some of them not.
I guess like the one thing I with cry, I can't, my mouth cannot form these words. Cry alert, and Naran. They were like doomed yaoi from the beginning. Like, well, first of all, like the series finished airing, so like I had mild spoilers about them. They were very doomed yaoi, but the whole like the pen pal writing letters back and forth, and then just like the whole passage where they were like highlighting like lines in the book for each other and like having them like find these lines and like interpret the meaning, and like the scene where Naran was like, oh, the line I highlighted for you was like talking about how much I hate you, and then Kryler was like, but if you look at like the full context, like this whole paragraph is like a love paragraph about I don't know, maybe it's just like the yearning that comes with like writing like these essentially love letters back and forth. Like even though they were rivals in their little columnists, like they were writing these letters back and forth to each other, and then like sending each other on these scavenger hunts to go and like find these passages. Like it was so like very yearning, very romantic, but it's also like that's when I knew like it was doomed from the start. And then like they actually get into the relationship, and like I said before, there's like this overarching like cloud over the entire thing of them like being in this private space away from the reality of the fact that Krylert is like the spokesperson for the army, whereas Iran is like this journalist who wants to speak for the people, and how like as the relationship went on, that became harder and harder for them to ignore. And like there were always like these little tidbits of like Krylert catching like a hint of one of Naran's articles, or something happening in Iran connecting the dots that it was Krylert who might have been involved in it. So the doomed yaoi of that relationship was just like, I was like locked in, but at the same time I was like, oh, this is gonna hurt me. I didn't expect it to be Davy who like kind of came in at the end and be like, hey, you signed up to be with me, and like now you're gonna be with me, and if you're not, like we might see what happened to your last boyfriend happen here again. Like that was like, I don't think it was a plot twist, but that took me off of guard. And honestly, like she deserved like she did kind of get shifted the entire series. So you know, it was interesting to see it kind of come full circle and have her have that moment where she's like, hey, this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah, Krylert and Naran, definitely giving enemies to lovers in a lot of ways. I was very invested in what they had going on, even though, like you said, it was so doomed from the start. You expect that though, and that's kind of what adds to the scandal and the mystique of it. I spent a lot, I would say almost the entire series, really hating Krylert. I really hated him until the finale, and then in the finale I was like, okay, I kind of feel for him. But he just always came off to me as someone who is not willing to sacrifice anything for himself or even for the people that he's serving. In a lot of ways, I think that he, like Trin, is a fence sitter, where he tries to be more neutral about things and just follow orders. But yeah, I hated Krylert for a lot of the show because there was just like instance after instance where I was like, are you finally going to step up and be the leader that you're supposed to be? He's very cowardly. He even like calls himself a coward. And it's like, I understand it to an extent. Like everything that he went through in the past is extremely sad and traumatic, but even he says in the finale that like he made the choices that he made, and now he has to live with it. Like he decided to continue to marry Devi and continue to further his military career. That was still a choice that he made. So it's not that I wasn't like sympathetic towards him, because after the finale I really, really felt bad for him, honestly. But I think I don't like people who pretend to care about others, pretend to care about an issue or humanity, but really all they care about is preserving their own rank in society. Like, even with the instance where he sends the military to go protect Trin, I'm like, did you do that because you actually care about Trin? Or did you do that to kind of save face? And so that Devi wouldn't be like, oh, you're the reason why my nephew got hurt or something. Like, a lot of his actions, I would say like all of his actions felt very insincere, unless we're talking about like him writing to Naran in the newspaper column. That stuff, that's like when you saw the most sincere version of him, the most like stripped down version. But other than that, I don't know. I really hated him a lot throughout the series. By the end of it, I was like, oh well, this I guess I don't hate him, but it still is like, I don't know. He dragged everyone down with him. That's the thing. Like, okay,
Yeah.
you're cowardly, you're a terrible leader, but you didn't have to drag everyone down and be part of the reason probably why Victor was killed. Like, Victor didn't have to die, but
Even Vera,
yeah.
like his aide, died like protecting,
Yeah.
being like, "Hey, don't like drag my commander and his wife through the mud," and like he still died in the end. Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
think.
I,
Oh, what
can,
was I gonna say?
I I think like you're putting a lot of it on one man here. Like there were other people in that police force. No one else talked like said anything about anything. At least he was standing up for his opinions, like telling the chief that he didn't agree with what he did and stuff like that. Like no one else was doing anything.
Yeah, but then he still followed
Yeah,
the
that's
chief's
why
orders in
I
the end.
Yeah, because like
yeah,
that's
that's
his
why
job. Like
I
what like sacrificing your work for your opinions, like especially when you have like a higher rank and can do a difference, you have to kind of pick what like okay, how am I are you going to go about doing that difference? That's the whole plot like of the show is like balancing the way like
The thing
um
is, yeah, I get, yeah, that's definitely like that is like the point they were making is like, how do you make a difference? I don't think Kryler really wanted to or had any intention to make a difference for most of the show. I think he, like Kayla said, was like more just trying to save face for most of it. And it wasn't until like, I think we did see at the one point after the chief got killed, he was like, "Oh, I don't agree with how you chose to handle this." And then after that, it wasn't, until the very end that he decided to like finally like take that stand and say something. But I don't know that he was like, I don't know that he was ever going to use his rank to make a difference unless he was really
no.
confronted with it like he was at the end after Victor died, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's why my emotions about him shifted at the end.
yeah. I throughout it, I just didn't see anywhere where it would like presume that he didn't care. I didn't get that at all.
There was the one moment when at the protest where he sent his troops to protect Naren or to protect Trin, and he specifically asked Naran to edit out any photos that had Trin in them.
Yeah.
And Trin was like, or Naran was like, "You're like very selfish." Like I think he admits that like he is a selfish person, and he admits that he's acting for his own benefit. And I think protecting Trin benefits him, which is why he protects Trin. Obviously, he cares about Trin as his nephew. Like, I don't want to imply that he doesn't care about Trin, but I don't know that he cared about anyone else involved until like the very end. But he was more concerned with saving his face for most of the
I mean,
series, I
when
would
he
say.
stopped them from going after them with the guns, like he didn't have to say anything then. He stopped them from shooting the protesters in the first
Because
one.
Trin was with them, yeah.
Yeah, and he knows how it's going to be portrayed in the media also. Um,
Yeah, I
but yeah, I
understand
don't
what
know where I was going
you
with
guys
that
are
thought.
saying. I didn't get that at all. That he doesn't care. Oh, like yeah, he has selfish moments. They all do, but I didn't get that at all.
Maybe it's not that he doesn't care, it's just that he will always care more about his own comfort and safety. And the people who are very close to him, like Trin, who I think that he sees a lot of himself in, and he wants to kind of like allow Trin the, I guess, like freedom to be himself that he could never have. So I think that like he I think he does like care about like protecting Trin, but at the end of the day, it's always going to come down to his image, and like how he is perceived by the media, how he's perceived by everyone around him. Like, he cares a lot about what other people think.
Yeah. And then when he finally, like, in the end, he did try and choose to give that up. But even then, I think he was not really thinking about the consequences. Like, he was just ready to, like, leave, not expecting Devi to, like, object in any way. And so that's why I'm kind of like, yeah, her coming back at the end and being like, hey, you made the choice to marry me, and if you don't stick with that, then, like, there are going to be consequences. Like, I think that was fair. I don't know if, like, people have been hating on her. I haven't really seen a lot of the chatter about this show, but, like, I just think her coming back in the end and being like, basically, like, you made this bed, now you have to lie in it, and, like, I'm not going to let you just run off basically with this man because you said you love him. So, like, even in the end, like, he did finally kind of finally have that moment where he recognized what he needed to do. Like, he exposed the general who was forerunning everything, and Davey worked with Moira to get the tapes, which the women really coming through in the end and making things happen. But just, like, the idea that, like, he would just kind of be able to leave and, like, not have anything come from that. It was like, I don't know if naive is the right word. Maybe fantastical. Like, he was kind of living in that fantasy of, like, seeing now that he had, like, been authentic or, like, made the right choice, like, he could live in this fantasy world with Naran. And then it's like reality still comes back and is like, no, actually, like, this is the bed you made all those years ago when, like Kayla said, you chose moving up in the army by marrying me, and now, like, you have to stick with that. So, an interesting character trajectory. I didn't, like, I don't know, I didn't hate him. I was frustrated by him for a lot of the show, and, like, him kind of being, like, the stickler, I guess I would say. But I did, yeah, like Kayla said, I did kind of sympathize with him in the end when he was kind of, like, stuck in that world he had created, basically, for all those reasons years ago. Any other things people want to talk about?
The thing with this show is, if you give me literally any character or plot point, I can just, like, talk about it, like, right off the dome. Like, I didn't need any notes for this one because I watched, like, every episode, like, 3 times. So
honestly,
really
I wouldn't
analyzed
have
this
finished
show.
it if it wasn't for us making this video. I watched until episode 3 and I was just like, okay, I'm bored.
That's crazy. I literally, within, like, 10 minutes of the show, I was like, I reacted to it. You can literally see the moment where I get a twinkle in my eyes because I found my new hyperfixation. Like, 10 minutes into the show, I'm like, it's like they Beyond Cloud put a spell on me. They had, like, a subliminal specifically for me.
Yeah. I just think, like, the Beyond Cloud production, the way they film things and stuff, like, I understand the value. Like, the production value is great. The actors are great. All of that. It's just, it doesn't draw me in at all. The same thing happened with Kin Porsche, honestly. Like, it just doesn't draw me in. But Oppo was amazing. And I really liked the actor of Victor. I think he really did a good job. I thought it was a little bit funny that they cast a mixed Thai Ukrainian to play Thai Russian, but yeah.
I have not watched a Beyond Cloud show since Kin Porsche. I was interested in this one early on because, like, Kayla and I went to that Timeless Thai Taste event in New York where they talked a lot about the show and, like, their intentions of it. I have feelings about Beyond Cloud as a production company that extend way back to Kim Porsche era. So I was interested in the show. I didn't watch it when it came out. But, you know, watching it for this, I enjoyed it more than I thought it would. And I think it is because of the nature of the show. And I think it was because I connected to those political elements that the show really resonated and hooked me in. So I think it was less about the production company. Actors were incredible. Oppo is one in a million talent, like, truly.
Yeah.
And not to be shallow, but every time he was on screen, I was like, that is the most beautiful man I have ever laid eyes on. Like, he is so gorgeous in every single scene he's in.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
There is something about Appo's ass that is just divine.
I mean, yeah, hell yeah. Yeah. I just think there is something so special about a gorgeous tan skinned, like dark skinned, not dark skinned, tan skinned man with the 1960s, like the way they tailored the suits and the bell bottom jeans and the low cut button downs, like wonderful, everything. Like, but yeah, the acting was amazing. I think the acting and the story were really what sold it for me. I do think it had like really, really great production. Like, it was shot beautifully, like it was very high quality. But yeah, I think the actors and the story that they were telling was able to pull me in, whereas like in general I don't typically vibe with Beyond Cloud Productions, if that makes sense. And this was kind of like the exception for me.
Obviously I loved Victor's character. I resonated with him so much on so many levels. But I also really resonated with Tanwa. Like, Tanwa was one of my favorite characters. I think it also has to do with Miles' performance as well. Like, I thought this was honestly the best acting I've seen from him ever. He was just really good at playing a free-spirited individual, a free-spirited hippie type individual. Like, we said how the show is randomly categorized as a rom-com. He's the one who brought the comedy, so to speak. Yeah. He's the one that was like very uplifting, or he tried to always uplift the mood, and I really like that about him. I really like that he was kind of like everywhere, kind of like ADHD representation a bit of just like, he'll like start doing one thing and get really focused on it and then like abandon it and then move on to the next thing very quickly. And I relate to that. So I really liked Tanwa's character as well. He was entertaining.
Yeah, any of the comedic moments that did happen came from like Tanwa and the little like his little hippie commune that he had at his record shop. I thought it was really silly when Victor went to go fight Tanwa and he brought his friends and they were like, "What? Wait, why the hell did you bring us here?" And then he like fell in the pool. Like, that was so such funny. A silly scene. So there definitely were some silly moments, but I do think it's like crazy to categorize this as a rom-com because it does not give romantic comedy in the slightest. Like, I think having silly moments does not make something a comedy.
Yeah. I will say my favorite scene was when Dao took off her shoe and slapped Naren with it.
Oh, that was iconic.
That was gold.
Yeah, honestly, her and Davy both got done dirty by the men in their lives. So I thought she was gonna like hit him with the pointy end. I was like, oh, we're about to beat this man with a shoe. And then she just slapped. I was like, very, very dignified way to slap someone.
Dude, and it's like giving this message that you are too like shit for me to even touch you. So here, have the sole of my shoe where I've been stepping in shit. No, he deserved it, honestly.
He did.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of harkens back to that whole conversation we had when we reviewed, I cannot remember the shows, the cheating Japanese BL. And it is kind of like that discussion about, yes, thank you. I don't know why I can't remember show titles today. But that kind of discussion around like how cheating is framed in a show. And I do think this show did a decent job of showing that like the women were wronged and that they were like right in having their feelings about being wronged by the men in their lives. Because like naturally, like when a show is framing a romantic relationship like they were with Kryler and Naran, like you want to root for that. Yeah. But also like cheating, both of them cheating on their partners being at the base of that. Like I do think they did a decent job of showing how both of their partners were very wronged by that relationship.
Yeah, their partners weren't really doing anything wrong. And like
Yeah.
Dao from the start, she wasn't doing anything wrong. She just wanted to have like a life with him, doing
Yeah.
everything for him basically. So it was, yeah.
Yeah, it is it's an interesting, like, so many people in history have been forced into heterosexual marriages and relationships in the same way. And I mean, Kryler staying with Devi in the end is the reality for probably so many queer people who grew up in that time period. So it is like a really, really interesting point. I don't know if point's the right word, that they made with that choice to have him not get his happy ending per se.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've been going for almost 50 minutes, so do we want to give our ratings on this one? It's going to be an interesting spectrum, I think, based on the conversation we had. I'll go first. I would put this solidly at a 4 for me. I did not expect to get attached to the element of the show that I did get attached to, which was the politics and the characters and how they were involved in the story that way. So I was very pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed like watching the story outside of outside of a romantic lens, like, if that makes sense. Like, it's kind of like what you were saying, Pixie, like the romance isn't the thing that was driving the story for me. So I really like that I was able to get attached to the characters and their stories and like their trajectory in the context of what was happening politically in Thailand at that period in time. And I was very pleasantly surprised by that. I think the costuming was incredible. I really liked the music, and how they incorporated like Tanwa as a singer and his music and music from the 1960s and how that was incorporated into like the columns with Kryler and Naran. From a production standpoint, musically, I really enjoyed that. Like we all said, like the acting was amazing. I think there was a lot of like standout actors and a lot of actors I would be excited to see in other work. So yeah, I would say solidly a 4 for me. Like I enjoyed the show a lot more than I thought I would going into it. And maybe that was just prejudice I had going into it based on my previous like Beyond Cloud series that I've watched. But yeah, I enjoyed this one a lot. So I would say a 4 for me.
Yeah. For me, I would land on a 3 because like I said, there's a lot of production value to it, and I don't disagree with a lot of things you guys are saying about it. I just it didn't hit home with me at all. And that made it really hard to watch certain parts of it while other parts were good. And I will always applaud doing something differently, like going for the more darker or more, yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, it didn't land with me that well, so it's on a 3. Like, it's not the worst score I've given a BL before.
I have to give a 5 out of 5. Like, I connected with this story. I really did. It had me crying. It had me like laughing, literally the entire spectrum of emotions, like so much anger as well. There's so much I like about it. Everything that you mentioned, Alexa. I also really love the dialogue. I think that the scriptwriters, like, oh my gosh, they came up with some beautiful metaphors and they really went for them. They really went all out with them. And I thought it was like so beautifully written, just like the script itself. Of course, the cinematography, there were so many like camera shots, so many lighting tricks that I even felt like those were symbolic of like showing, like, I'm thinking, for example, there's this shot of Naran that I really love where they're following him through the shelves in the library. And then like we have a similar shot of Kryler later on, and I don't know. Like, I feel that, like, every single detail in this show was so intentional. Down to the camera shots, down to, like, the symbolism. They have a lot of symbolism with the moon, a lot of symbolism with, like, rabbits, at least in the beginning. And I don't know if it's, like, the former English student in me, but, like, there were a lot of things like that I latched onto. A lot of metaphors and stuff like that. I connected with, I would say, all the characters to some extent. Of course, Victor and Tanwa were my faves. I'm ride or die for them. I'm sorry, I really am. But what else? Yeah, everything else you said, like the music, the styling, it was also good in my opinion. I loved like every interaction between the characters. Like, weirdly enough, I think some of my favorite scenes were the scenes with Trin and Victor, because I like resonated with Victor's character a lot, and I also thought that like there was a symbolism in, I don't know how to describe it, like the push and pull that he thought was there. The substance that he thought was there but wasn't actually there. It's like an illusion. And then it made me think of like, is the change that he seeks like an illusion? But yeah, that's getting a little metaphysical with it. But all in all, yeah, this honestly amazing series in my opinion. I loved it, and I went into it with bias against Beyond Cloud as well. So yeah.
Well, that is going to be all for our review of Shine, the series. Be sure to let us know what you thought about the series down in the comments below. Where did your thoughts land on the spectrum? What characters or elements of the story really resonated with you? We'd love to hear your thoughts on everything. If you're watching this on YouTube, this will be our last review of 2025. So the next time you see a LoveCast review will be in the new year. If you are interested in seeing our review sooner or getting to vote on what series we review, this one was voted on by our patrons, and it was a very close battle between this and My Magic Prophecy. It was only a difference of one vote. So some intense battles going on for what shows we will review. So if you're interested in being a part of that, you can join our Patreon. The link will be down in the description. And it's a great way to support the show and all of the stuff that we do if that's something you're interested in. But because this will be coming out on YouTube in December, we will see you guys in the new year for our next review. Bye-bye.